We are missing somebody, but I'm sorry about that. We thought we were going to be RSVP'd with a full crew. So good evening and welcome to the candidate forum for San Francisco Board of Supervisors District 7 election. I'm Danielle Deibler, the Vice President of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of San Francisco. The League of Women Voters of San Francisco is a nonpartisan political nonprofit that encourages participation and information and active government participation from their members and from the community. These forums are part of that active participation. The League never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. However, after thorough study, we do sometimes take a stand on issues. The League is committed to providing the resources that voters need to exercise the most fundamental right of our democracy, voting. Please visit lwvsf.org/vote in the coming weeks, and you'll find the voter resources that we have to offer. We want to thank the Department of Parks and Recreation for the use of this facility, and we also want to acknowledge that we are in the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, the original inhabitants of San Francisco. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland, and we affirm their sovereign rights as the first peoples of this land. This election will feature several local contests, including this one, that utilize ranked choice voting, which is everybody's favorite way to vote. Every time I talk to a voter, they just are like, ranked choice, all the way. So we partner with the Department of Elections, so at the beginning of these forums, we do a little tiny kind of run through of ranked choice voting, just to kind of give you a refresher. There are a lot of contests that are ranked choice, pretty much almost all the local offices. So just real basic stuff, right? The election, or the ballot will basically have on the left-hand side, there'll be your list of candidates. There'll be a row on the top where you rank the candidates. So think of it like a spreadsheet where the top row doesn't move, right? So you've got your rankings there. You rank your candidates in your first choice, right? You rank in the little, fill in the bubble, and you rank the first choice candidate you have, then you fill in the next bubble. For the second, the third, it's kind of rinse, repeat for as many candidates as you actually want to rank on the ballot. You can't give the same rank to more than one candidate. It might be that you love chocolate and strawberry equally, but you cannot do that. You can also not rank more or give more than one candidate the same rank. So only your first ranking is going to be counted. You're going to make it so that basically nothing else counts after that. So you want to be careful when you're filling in those little ovals. You may write in candidates. Do not forget to rank them. Just because you wrote a name there does not mean that anybody has any idea what your rank is. So you want to make sure that you rank the candidates that if you do write them in at the bottom of the list of candidates that are running. So now I am pleased to introduce our moderator for tonight so we can get this show on the road. I'm sorry. Oh, that is a very good point from the audience, which is you don't have to rank every candidate, right? You don't have to have an opinion about everybody. Rank the ones you care about and don't rank the ones that you don't. Because otherwise, what the lady in the audience is referring to is if you rank everybody and there's like two candidates you really don't want, then with ranked choice, they could potentially get your votes later on as you try to run off the candidates between one another. So I think that's the point you were trying to make? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so now I'm pleased to introduce Allison Go. She's been president of the League of Women Voters of San Francisco since 2020 and previously served as the vice president of voter services. She's passionate about voter education and women in politics. She lives in the Outer Sunset, where she enjoys walks in Golden Gate Park with her husband, toddler, and rescue dog. Thank you very much, Allison. I would like to welcome you up to the stage.
Thank you, Danielle. I do also want to give huge thanks to Danielle and Darcy and all of the volunteer leadership of the League of Women Voters for putting this and all of our candidate forums on. So thank you, Danielle and Darcy. Hello, neighbors, for having me today. I'm really excited to see so many San Franciscans here in the room to hear from the candidates for the 2024 District 7 Board of Supervisors election. Candidates, welcome. And thank you for participating this foggy evening. If your friends, family, or neighbors couldn't be here tonight, this forum is being recorded. It will be on our website at lwvsf.org and on our YouTube channel. It will also be on SFGovTV's YouTube and cable channels. We'd like to give a huge, big thank you to our friends at SFGovTV. They really do a fantastic job of recording and live streaming all of these nonpartisan forums all over San Francisco. We team up with them every election, and it's really, really great to be able to work with an organization that shares our goal of educating and empowering voters throughout the city. Your support is truly invaluable to us. First, I want to let the audience know some of our ground rules. For those watching online, you are in listen-only mode. This means that Q&A and chat features have been turned off. The chat on YouTube stream is also disabled. For those in the room with us today, please be respectful and refrain from reacting and making noises. Please no booing, but also please hold your applause until the end of the forum. I know it's hard sometimes. This all helps ensure that everyone in the room and watching online can hear the candidate's vision for the future of San Francisco and District 7. It also makes the video's closed captions and audio clear for those who are viewing remotely or watching the recording after the fact. Here are the rules. Candidates, you will make opening and closing statements. You get 60 seconds. Opening statements will be in alphabetical order by first name, and closing statements will be in reversed alphabetical order by first name. Each of you will have the opportunity to answer the same questions, and I'll rotate the order you answer these questions, and you'll have 60 seconds for each response. If you don't remember the order, I will cue you up, don't worry. These questions I ask were selected from those submitted in advance by residents and constituents of District 7 and organizations who are active here. A league member, Anne in the front row, wave, will provide you with a visual indication of how much time you have left. For example, we have the 30-second paddle, the 15-second paddle, and then the red stop sign, which, as my toddler knows, is the universal sign for stop. Your responses to questions should be about the issues or policy. Please be respectful. We do not allow personal attacks on other people. Please do not direct your responses to other candidates, and you do not need to mention other candidate names. Folks can speak for themselves when it's their turn. This is just as a reminder, this is a forum, not a debate. If you have a rebuttal, you do not get extra time. Instead, please fit your rebuttal into your time responding to another question, or maybe your closing statement. Okay, voters, those at home watching or watching a recording, those in room, you have important decisions to make for our November 5th election. Tonight's forum is a wonderful opportunity to learn about the candidates before you vote. So let's get started. So we're going to start with opening statements, and we'll go in alphabetical order by first name. In your opening statement, please introduce yourself and share why you're running for the District 7 Supervisor. Please stay within the 60-second time limit, and we'll begin the time whenever you start speaking. I'll begin with Matthew.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Matt Piscetto. I'm a fourth-generation San Franciscan, a small business owner, and a husband and father of 3. Look, this is not something that was in my professional trajectory. I did this out of encouragement of local leaders who thought District 7 was lacking a voice that represented the district and delivered on the issues they wanted to see fixed. I'm a small business owner, and as a small business owner, I have to be hyper accountable about my business. If I don't balance my budget, I lose my business. Every decision I make not only impacts me, but impacts the lives of my employees. So having that level of accountability with that love for the district and that desire to help the community, I think combined with the knowledge that I have as a small business owner about the layers of policy issues and how they drive ordinary San Franciscans out and keep good ones from coming in would make me a great agent for change in City Hall at a time where we need great change. Thank you.
Myrna.
Thank you so much. I am Myrna Melgar. I am your supervisor currently for District 7. I am running for re-election because this job requires 3 things: passion, experience, and know-how. And I am the only candidate here on this stage who has all 3. Folks can tell you what their opinions are, but I am the only candidate who has written legislation, who has negotiated with the mayor and 10 other colleagues to bring resources that our West Side neighborhoods need while also balancing the city budget. I'm the only one who has voted on issues of consequence to our city, like what happens on JFK Drive, or whether we should expand our shelter policy for the homeless. For the past 4 years, I have prioritized the very diverse needs of the West Side, and I am proud of the services that my district office has provided to our constituents. I have done it as a bridge builder, getting along with everyone through consensus. And if reelected, you can be assured that I will continue to do the same to make progress while getting pragmatic results for us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Martin Pinto. I'm a firefighter, a Marine Corps veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, and a fifth-generation San Franciscan. The reason why I'm running is because when I came back from off of active duty in 2014 and got hired by the fire department, I hadn't lived in San Francisco for quite a few years. And my first impression was, oh my God, what happened to San Francisco? Who was in charge here, and was there a plan? And I quickly learned that there really was no plan, there wasn't really any strong leadership, so I decided to get involved and spring into action. City Hall isn't about you. City Hall is about preserving City Hall and City Hall insiders. I come from the community. I've been involved in the community for quite some time as a neighborhood association leader. What City Hall is giving us and what we want are two different things. We want public safety. City Hall is giving us an activist police commission, which acts as a hindrance, not an asset. We want taxpayer accountability. We have litany of nonprofits wasting money on corruption in nonprofits.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for all your opening statements. First question, what is your vision for District 7? And if elected, what is the first action that you will take? I'll begin with Matthew.
My vision for District 7 is one where people feel safe, one where people feel heard, one where the conditions on the streets, especially on our commercial corridors, are improving and the businesses are not suffering from the lack of response there. I think I want to see a District 7 where the community comes together, especially on issues of housing, issues of transit, which in the last 4 years have become huge points of contention in this district. There are ways to make progress in District 7 without leaving people feeling alienated, powerless, and without a voice. And the type of leader I want to be is somebody who leads by consensus, who listens to my constituents and advocates for them both in City Hall and out. Thank you.
Myrna.
Thank you. I am a mother of 3 girls who grew up and went to school in this district. I want nothing more than for them to feel safe here, to be able to thrive and set roots, to be able to afford to live in District 7. I want a district that makes progress and sees the solutions of tomorrow to our problems of today. Homelessness, lack of safety, the climate crisis. We must move forward together and make progress and make sure that the West Side still continues to be the best district to live and do business in the city, which it is right now. We will continue to do that. Thank you.
So I've done tons of door knocking here in District 7, and there's 2 things that people keep on telling me that they want. They want public safety, and they want representation. Currently, they feel like they don't have it. When it comes to SFMTA and how they exert their plans, despite community opposition, they don't feel heard. When it comes to wanting good schools, what people want in District 7 is they want good schools, but that's not what the SFUSD is giving them. And they want, basically, just like I said, they want to feel like their voices matter. And currently, they don't feel like that's the case. So as supervisor, because I have been involved for so long, I'm familiar with what people want. I've done tons of door knocking. I've talked to countless thousands of people. I'm ready to bring citizen representation back to City Hall.
Thank you. There's a new proposal to enforce a citywide overnight parking ban for RVs and other oversized vehicles. Do you support or oppose this proposal? Please address the possibility of relocating vehicles that are at Pomeroy Center to larger spaces, such as the Cow Palace, and possibly other solutions. For this question, I'm going to start with Myrna.
Thank you. I have not seen the proposal, so I cannot tell you whether or not it hits all of the right points. But I will tell you that our public right-of-way should be public for everyone, not for individuals, whether they are houseless or low income or high income. I think that we must do something to enforce the public right-of-way and restrictions on our public streets. At the same time, we have a responsibility to provide opportunities for our folks to thrive. And if we have housing resources, we must utilize them and make sure that people can succeed. The RVs are no longer at the Pomeroy Center. There are some still on John Muir Drive, but we were able to house, of the 26 families that were parked in front of the Pomeroy Center, 24 of them into permanent housing with vouchers. Thank you.
Steve.
When it comes to parking bans or enforcement of parking laws, I'm absolutely in favor of it. You know, we have a system of, we're a society of laws and rules, law and order. And by not enforcing a law, by not enforcing a standard, we're creating a new standard. The city can actually divert RV residents into alternative housing and assistance. It's been done before. Back in I think it was 2018 or 2019, there was a large RV community on DeWolf Street, which is in District 11. The city, together with DPH, SFPD, and homeless outreach teams, was able to find accommodations for all those individuals. And we did it before, we can do it again. We're not reinventing the wheel. We just have to do the things that we already did that were successful.
I do support the plan to ban RV parking on the streets. I think now we can have a solution for the long term. What's clear is for the last 4 years, we have not had any solution. So I'm happy there is being progress made. If the prevailing narrative is true that most of these are families, that makes that even more egregious. If these families were living in tents, we'd have solutions for them the day of, as soon as we can. But since they moved to an RV, it somehow is different. So I would have a plan. I would have anticipated Grants Pass, the overturn, had worked with the police and the MTA to have a strict enforcement plan on the streets in San Francisco, and that would effectually end what everybody worries about as a revolving door. Then we can focus on the RVs that are here, put them in a safe parking site, and offer them compassionate solutions. If they don't accept those solutions at a certain time, that's unsustainable for those individuals and for San Francisco, and we should ask them to move on. Thank you.
Next question. Do you support or oppose Prop K, which will permanently close the Great Highway from Lincoln to Sloat? If it fails, what would you do with the Great Highway? But if it passes, how would you deal with the concerns that residents may have about the increased neighborhood traffic? This question I'm going to start with Stephen.
I don't support Prop K. The reason is because, you know, it seems like everything nowadays in San Francisco is a all or nothing solution. Nobody can win unless somebody loses. What we have now is a compromise solution. I think it does the most good for the most people. People on weekends can use weekdays can commute on the Great Highway. People on weekends, they can, you know, it's shut down, they can use it for recreation. We can do both. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be often, you know, it's not the preferred course of action for many in San Francisco politics. We're never going to agree on everything. However, I do think the current compromise is the best one. We should keep that compromise with some adjustments we can make depending on the seasons. And I don't support the closure of Great Highway. I don't support Prop K.
I'm going to revert to Matt next.
So I am against the I'm against the closure of the Great Highway, Prop K. I was really surprised when I actually read the legislation because there is no plan for a park. There's no funding set aside. It doesn't address any of the community concerns. The only thing it concretely does is close it off to private vehicles. So I'm against it for really 3 reasons. First off, whether you agree with it or not, the process has left a ton of neighbors feeling alienated, feeling powerless, feeling voiceless. Second, it doesn't do anything to mitigate the problems that the neighbors are fearing will happen. 18,000 cars use it a day. Those cars will be going onto Sunset. They will be going into neighborhoods where there's 10 schools in the immediate vicinity of where those cars will be going. Will this actually make our families safer? I don't know. And the last point is, at a time we have an $800 million deficit, this is just financially irresponsible. A park, if there really is a plan for a park, will cost tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds, to do it. At a time that we have pressing issues across the city, we should be putting more funding into. Thank you.
I support Prop K. I was one of the supervisors who put it on the ballot. If the voters decide that it's not a good idea, then it will not happen. But if they do, which I hope they do, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take a road that right now produces pollution and leave it for the next generation as a beautiful park. It also provides an opportunity for tremendous community economic development for the community. Right now, if you get on the Great Highway at Sloat, you cannot get off until you hit Lincoln. If you want to stop and get lunch at Java, you cannot. It is designed as a cut-through. It bypasses the entirety of the west side, and it is expensive to maintain because whether we like it or not, we are fighting against Mother Nature, and she usually wins. The Prop K language is very simple. It's just yes and no. All of the details of the when will be worked out in legislation, and there will be a process. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your answers. Do you support or oppose a plan that will make reparations to San Francisco's African American community? And what do you see as a supervisor's role regarding this issue? I'm going to start with Bat.
At this time, I do not think reparations are a responsible thing to pursue. We have an $800 million deficit. It's being projected to move up to $1.6 billion. While reparations is something that we should talk about as a community, while we're facing a massive budgetary crisis, we should not be talking about giving cash payments to citizens and not to others. So I do think there's a number of solutions that we can uplift and take care of that community through reparations, but I think we first need to find financial health and a surplus that allows us to actually put money to something as aspirational as reparations. Thank you.
Myrna.
The history of San Francisco government towards the Black community in San Francisco has been bad and egregious. From the redevelopment of the Fillmore to the environmental racism at Bayview Hunters Point, to the segregation in our public schools, to the fact that infant mortality among Black women in San Francisco is the highest of any other population. The 102 recommendations of the report on reparations, one of them was cash payments, but the other 101 were all kinds of other things, like how do we address infant mortality? How do we focus our already existing programs to meet the needs of that community? How do we make sure that pregnant women are not homeless? How do we make sure that by 3rd grade, Black kids can read in our public schools? That is the bulk of the reparations, and I support our city doing something to repair the harm.
I don't support reparations. I just can't do it. It's expensive, it's divisive, it's probably illegal according to Prop 2019, and I think it's a cheap attempt by politicians to pander and buy votes. I think the best form of reparations really comes in the city providing the basic services that it should be providing: good schools, safe, clean neighborhoods. I worked for 3 years for the fire department for SF Fire in the Bayview district. The amount of neglect that the city has for that district, I've seen personally up front. The city needs to invest in repairing those schools, making those neighborhoods safe and clean, so that anybody, any family, any kid can walk around and feel not threatened. That to me is the most equitable form of quote unquote reparations. I think providing everybody, not just African Americans, but everybody that lives in poor neighborhoods with a safe, clean environment where they can go to school and learn and have a great life and a great chance to grow up safe.
Thank you. I also realized that I messed up the order of speaking, so I apologize for any confusion. Next question. A federal HUD program known as Faircloth to RAD will eventually provide Section 8 vouchers for 3,667 affordable housing units in San Francisco. One of the potential locations is 250 Laguna Honda in Forest Hill. What is your position on developing multi-tenancy housing for low-income families in this area? I'm going to begin with Myrna.
Thank you so much. I support it and worked for it. We cannot talk about homelessness in our district without building affordable housing. That project was proposed a few years ago and was discarded. I am so glad we now have the funding to build it. We now have the funding and the wherewithal to build two projects, one at 250 Laguna Honda and one across the street on the Laguna Honda campus, which will be deeply affordable housing for seniors and an assisted living facility that's subsidized, which will help Laguna Honda with its census. And a childcare facility at the bottom. It's going to be wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to those projects being built and to getting help from the federal government to do so. Thank you.
Steve.
I'm not opposed to projects like that necessarily. However, 250 Laguna Honda may not be the most suitable place for it. It's right below a hillside which is composed of soft sand and silt and may have potential for cave-in. I think a much more appropriate place for it would be on the Laguna Honda campus right across the street. There's plenty of space. It's underutilized. I think we have the chance to build it in a place that makes sense and provides housing, affordable housing for people who actually need it. It doesn't need to be so contentious. I think that's the best place for it, and I would support it if it was over on the Laguna Honda campus.
I don't think 250 Laguna Honda is a good place to be producing this housing, as Stephen said, for the same reasons. I do think with all the housing developments in District 7, there is a place to do this. And I'm certainly not against especially affordable housing in District 7, but you do it at a place that has the space and will have community support. Also, at the same time, we need to be saying yes to affordable housing across the city. If we had supervisors who didn't block projects like 469 Stevenson, which had 500 family-size units, 100 or more which were affordable, we'd have 500 families living there today, many who need an affordable situation. I am for expanding Section 8. I do think having a voucher program, both federally and then within the city, is something we should be pursuing. It allows accessibility to not just new units, but also units that are on the market or maybe kept off the market as well. So when we're thinking about housing, just finding solutions to get people into units and help them is something I'm all for. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to homelessness. One of the factors in addressing homelessness in San Francisco is preventing people from becoming unhoused in the first place. What kind of protections, programs, or policies do you support to keep people in their homes? I'm going to begin with Steve.
Well, for one thing, as a firefighter EMT, I deal with the homeless crisis pretty much every day I go to work. And one of the things I've seen time and time again is the homeless issue, as we see it here in San Francisco, is predominantly a drug and mental health issue. I think one of the first things we can do to stop homelessness or to begin to end homelessness is to shut down the open-air drug markets. I've talked to countless homeless individuals who come here for the cheap access to drugs, and I know it's because they tell me so. So there's several things we can do to stop homelessness. I think that's the first thing we can do. The second thing we need to do is to really get a hold of all these nonprofits that deal in homelessness and find out who is actually doing their job. Those that aren't doing their job should be cut, because it's a huge corruption issue which is actually hurting the effort of solving homelessness and perpetuating it even, and not helping it. So those are two things that I think we can do to begin to end this homeless crisis.
Matt.
So I think we need to have solutions to make sure those who are on the brink of becoming homeless don't. So we need to, we currently have solutions in place. We should expand those solutions. If they can't keep them in their unit, we should try to get them into another unit. But I think rent control does take care of a lot of that, a good portion of it. For me, I'd like to pursue policies that make rent control more sustainable, less contentious between the landlords and the tenants. Prop 33 and the recent legislation this year that fast tracks a tenant's ability to sue the landlord, make those relationships more contentious and actually ruin the financial incentive to own property, to maintain property, and to even build new housing in San Francisco. So while we need to make sure tenants are protected, we need to stop and help people who are on the brink of homelessness, we also need to make sure that the financial incentive is there so people want to keep investing into San Francisco, keep improving their properties, and keep units on the market. Thank you.
Thank you. So the question was about preventing folks from being evicted and becoming homeless. Over the last 4 years, we have done some pretty remarkable things and rolled out new programs in San Francisco. The first one is rental assistance for folks who were behind on their rent. That was a really successful program. It required that the landlord and the tenant work together to apply for assistance. And that was a really good thing. We prevented evictions for thousands of people in San Francisco. Another one has been the small size acquisition program, which allows qualified nonprofits to purchase buildings and have them as cooperatively owned housing by tenants. That program also has been very successful. We need to fund it and we need to have capacity for that. And lastly, we have worked with several nonprofit organizations like Catholic Charities that provide rental assistance and subsidies and work with folks now that we have rolled out also the right to counsel paid for by the city, also to prevent evictions and homelessness, and that has been really successful.
How can we raise the funds that San Francisco needs to execute the city's climate action plan? I'm going to start with Matt.
Well, first of all, I think the city's doing a great job of reaching these goals. When you look at our fleet, our transit fleet, moving to zero emissions, we've done great improvements to get there, and we should keep innovating and working to move further in that direction. I do think we do need to look for support at different state and federal level to help us with these initiatives. They are very costly. We have a massive budget, as we said, so as we pursue these very aspirational policies and projects, we need to make sure that we do it in a way where San Francisco stays sustainable. I also think when you talk about transit specifically, we need to also look at ways to get people out of their cars and into transit, and I think that's addressing the underlying issues that Muni has. Thank you.
Myrna.
Thank you. The climate crisis is real, and we are surrounded by water on 3 sides in San Francisco. Most of our infrastructure is under the ground. We are doing okay with our goals in terms of transportation, but we are nowhere near we need to be in climate adaptation. There was a recent report that was produced by our civil grand jury that looked at our efforts in shoring up everything that's our infrastructure around the Embarcadero, the ferry building, the ports, and we're not doing well. We need the federal government to help us to bring those resources, but above all, we need a plan. The one that we have is not adequate, and I commit to you that as supervisor, I will continue to lead on these efforts because they are one of the most important things that we have to do as a city.
I think we're making some really good progress towards our climate goals. However, I think one thing we could improve in is, one of the biggest emissions of greenhouse gases in San Francisco is cars. Unfortunately, for SFMTA, Muni, the most equitable form of transit that anybody can use and the most effective way to get people out of their cars, has been neglected. Our current train control system is running on antiquated floppy disk software, which means it's unreliable and prone to breakdowns, which I've personally experienced. If we are really serious about our climate goals, we need to improve and make safe, clean, and reliable Muni and BART as well, so people actually will be incentivized to get out of their cars and can take public transportation in good faith, knowing that it'll serve their needs. And currently, I'm seeing this core service by the city being neglected.
By mandate, San Francisco needs to build roughly 82,000 housing units by 2031. How many units do you think will be in District 7? How many would be affordable housing units versus market rate? And how would you include families and working class folks in your plans for affordable housing? I'm going to start with Mirna.
Thank you. Of the 82,000 units, roughly half have already been entitled, and most of them are on the east side of town. That is not consistent with the principle of affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is an established principle in law that says that it should be equitable, not just on the east side of town. So I expect that we will build a lot on the west side. We have already started. We have entitled the Balboa Reservoir, Stonestown, Park Merced. We need to do more because we need housing for the next generation, for young people, for seniors. At least half of it needs to be affordable. And when we say, oh, you know, we are for affordable housing, but not here, or not next to me, then what we're saying is we don't want affordable housing. I will lead on this issue. My background is in affordable housing. I am working on legislation for cooperatively owned housing. We need more of it, and we need it faster.
Steve.
So I'm not quite certain that this 82,000 unit requirement is going to happen. The reason is because of this. The city government does not develop housing. It does not build housing. Developers build housing. And if it doesn't pencil out because of economic conditions aren't right, then they're not going to build housing. However, there's a lot that we can do to make housing more economically feasible. We have a broken system of housing. Our housing permitting process is broken. It takes about 87 different permits, each of them discretionary, each of them approved sequentially to build a single unit of housing. The amount of time that it takes is immense. We can fix our broken permitting process, and that'll go a long way to making housing more economically feasible and more likely to be built on time. So.
As was mentioned, when you consider Stonestown, Balboa Reservoir, Park Merced, that's almost 9,200 units that can be built in District 7 right there. So when you look at the 82,000 quota, District 7, it's holding its weight citywide. So there's no reason we need to be cutting into our single-family home neighborhoods. We can be protective of our single-family home neighborhoods and hold our weight in the housing issue. Secondly, I don't think upzoning the whole west side is certainly not particularly popular with people in District 7, nor does it actually result in projects actually being produced. So I think we need supervisors who are going to focus on actually getting projects off the ground, and we need supervisors who are going to say yes to housing across the city. When you talk about affordable housing, as I mentioned, we could have over 100 units of affordable housing where families could be in it today on top of a Nordstrom valet parking lot downstairs or downtown. That is a place where it makes sense, and if we had supervisors who said yes to it in District 7 and across the city, we'd be a lot further in progress down this issue.
Of the 30,000 total home fire protection policies that State Farm will not renew in California in 2025, about 2 to 3% of those policies are for homes in San Francisco. What will you do to address this problem about home insurance? This question's going to first go to Steve.
So the insurance crisis is affecting homeowners statewide, and there are state programs which are designed to help sustain homeowners insurance in the interim. What we have to do as a city is help find homeowners connect with those programs. What this is going to take is some action at the state level. Get to the bottom of this problem. Why is this happening? What's going on here? What are there policies that California is putting in place that's making it not profitable for insurance agents or insurance carriers to operate in California? If that is the case, then we need to address that with legislation which makes it more economically feasible for insurance carriers to do business in California. There's a lot of questions about this. There's a lot we need to dig further before we come up with a solution. We need to actually find out what's really going on and try to tailor a solution based on the problem.
Matt.
So this problem doesn't just exist for single-family home owners and property owners. It also exists for small business owners. It's hard to get a policy in the city at this point for both people, certainly more in the future across the state. There is a lot of policy issues with the state that I think drive and make it harder for businesses to exist in California, in San Francisco. But we also have to look at the underlying issues that are driving, giving insurance to people, making it harder to do so. I mean, a lot of that is a public safety issue. It's difficult to insure somebody's business, somebody's home, when crime is going on unchecked and damage can happen without any sort of end to that. So I think when you look at just the underlying symptoms, you have bad policy from the state level, from the city level that makes it unfriendly to business. But then you also have street conditions, you have public safety that makes claims and operating as an insurer less profitable as well. Thank you.
Myrna.
Thank you. Our insurance crisis in the state of California is directly related to the climate crisis and the fact that we have had wildfires across the state that have led to severe losses for insurance companies. We have had land use policies that are unsustainable, and we are now paying the price for what we have done. I am looking forward to our insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, putting forward policies to have the state be involved in subsidizing, because it has a direct effect on our real estate market, on our small businesses, on homeowners being able to stay in their homes. We must do something about it, and above all, we must adapt to our current situation and not be living in what happened in the past. Thank you.
The San Francisco Department of Environment's Climate Action Plan calls for cutting net carbon emissions to zero by 2040. One of the goals of the Climate Action Plan is to make sure that 80% of all trips are low carbon by 2030. If elected, what is your plan to make local and regional transit more efficient, increase ridership, and close the overall funding gap that San Francisco is currently facing? I was going to say that's a lot of words and questions. I'm going to start with Matt.
So as I mentioned before, I think we've made a lot of progress as far as our fleet. But when you look at the 25%, I think one of the best ways to reduce emissions is getting people out of the cars and onto transit. There's a 25% decrease in ridership in Muni. And what are the reasons for that? A lot of that is really due to public safety. People don't trust the street conditions downtown, nor do they trust it on the Muni. So we have to start first with addressing the conditions downtown, make people want to go across the city again, and then trust that they can ride Muni and have a good, safe, clean ride on the public transit itself. The $250 million deficit that the Muni has isn't driven from our transit system. Our cost per rides are some of the lowest benchmarked across cities in the United States. It's driven from these ideological projects, traffic reengineering projects that have just been happening rampant across the city. So the MTA needs to be reined in, focused on actually producing a good transit network for our citizens, and I think we'll see them go out of cars and onto transit more. Thank you.
Myrna.
Thank you. We need to get people out of cars and into public transit. The MTA budget's deficit is actually because of parking revenues, not because of and the capital projects. We have seen people park less, especially downtown, and the revenue that we collect has gone down. The best thing in the climate action goal, the largest portion of our reduction is from getting people out of gas cars and into electric cars. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure we have the infrastructure to allow people to make that shift and to get people into public transit. One of the most impactful things that we have done over the last couple years is to make Muni free for kids. That was my legislation. I'm really proud of it because aside from reducing truancy in our public schools, we are training a whole new generation of folks to ride transit. And all the studies say that if you start as a kid, you'll continue those behaviors on as an adult. And we must continue to make progress on that.
I think one of the biggest things we can do is to make Muni, public transportation, safe, clean, and reliable. Currently, that's not the case. Currently, Muni is prone to breakdowns, it's not always clean, and it's not always safe. By SFMTA not neglecting its core function, which I think is Muni, it's actually working against its own climate goals. It needs to get back to basics and focus on the core mission of SFMT, which I believe to be one of the core missions, which I believe to be public transportation, making it safe, clean, and reliable. The other thing we need to do is be bold and creative when it comes to expanding Muni Metro. I'm a big supporter of extending the T line further to Fisherman's Wharf. I'm a big proponent of putting the Gary bus, the 38 Gary bus, underground and reimagining it as a Muni Metro. These are the projects that we need to do in order to help us even get close to our climate goals here in San Francisco.
Thanks. Measure F passed in the March 2024 primary general election. This measure required those receiving city public assistance benefits that the city reasonably suspects are dependent on illegal drugs to participate in screening, evaluation, and treatment for drug dependency for those adults to be eligible for those benefits. Did you support or oppose this measure? Can you please explain? I'm going to start with Myrna.
Thank you. I did not support that measure for very practical reasons. In San Francisco, we already have a really bad retail theft problem. So if you take people's resources away, they still need to eat at least once a day. And I am afraid that we will see the retail theft at the Walgreens, at the Lucky's, at the Safeway increase and get worse. I think that we need an infrastructure that supports people while they are becoming sober. I don't think that this is a good solution, and there's no evidence that it will work. There has been studies on these types of solutions all around the country, and it has not been proven to work. So that's why I didn't support it.
Steve.
I absolutely supported Prop F. You know, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask somebody who's receiving benefits that they try to become sober. I've been in plenty of SROs downtown in the Tenderloin, in other parts of Soma, and just generally all over the place. And one thing that happens I see a lot of the time is people who are using drugs in their apartment, they trash their apartment, and it makes it uninhabitable not only for them, but for their neighbors as well. So if we're going to get serious about helping people who truly want help, we need to have a certain basic expectation of sobriety, or at least attempted to be sober. The reason is because it's going to hopefully compel people to be a little bit responsible for their own situation, and it's going to make for those who are serious about improving have a fighting chance of getting out of their situation, getting out of addiction, and getting into a more tenable situation for themselves.
Thank you. Matt.
I supported Prop F, and I think there's plenty of evidence to show that our current system is actually resulting in horrible outcomes for the people. Most of the deaths, OD deaths, are actually happening in SROs where we're giving people our services. So I think whatever we do, we need a system that has both accountability and opportunity. I'm a huge supporter of programs like The Way Out by the Salvation Army that actually gets people into sober treatment and then reintegrates them into society as functioning members of our city. And so not focusing on what we focused on for years, just allowing people to do whatever they want, giving handouts for people that keep them in this cycle of addiction, to me is not compassionate. We need to have solutions that actually lift people out of this cycle and help them improve their lives. Thank you.
We're coming up on the last couple of questions. What are you doing to engage and support youth in District 7? I'm going to start with Steve.
You know, I have volunteers who are younger people, and, you know, I think it's time that we teach kids, youth, to be engaged in politics, and because it's going to affect them someday. The caveat is they need to be able to understand the consequences of their voting or their positions. And as a supervisor candidate, I'm always willing to engage with young people, debate with them, make them think of things they might not have thought of yet, because a lot of young people are very idealistic, and that's great, but they don't have a lot of experience. And hopefully, by engaging them at a young age, I can make them see how other people, older adults, might view things. And I'm all for people getting involved in politics, but I think it's important that if you do so, that you try to be informed, you try to be compassionate, you try to be empathetic, and those are the things I teach.
Thank you. Matt?
So I think there's plenty of things we can do to support kids. I mean, who would be against, initiatives that help kids like free Muni? At the same time, if we don't not have leaders who are addressing the most dire issues that are pressing on all San Franciscans, it's really not going to make the situation better for kids or our families. Our streets are currently less safe than they've been in decades. Not only that, drivers are dangerous. There's no enforcement on the street. For me, I'd be very worried about letting my daughter walk to school or even walk to a bus stop. And so we need to be looking at the underlying issues that are affecting our kids. Kids are walking through open air drug use. They're seeing crimes being committed. And we need to make sure that we bring back that sense of safety. We bring deterrent to crimes. We address the conditions on our streets so kids can actually live and have the lives they're supposed to without seeing all this, horrible stuff. Thank you.
Our kids are our future, and they are the most important constituents that I have. I have led on youth issues on this board, from the Student Success Fund, which we passed a couple years ago to help with academic success at our public schools, to Proposition J, that's on the ballot for November, which I wrote to have accountability on youth programming in the San Francisco Unified School District. District 7, I'm proud to say, is the only district that has a youth council, which is a group of young people that advise me and the Board of Supervisors on District 7 issues. I am very proud that the folks that we have nominated to the Youth Commission have gone on to be really successful. My communications director is a former youth commissioner from District 7. And last but not least, we have worked with the Youth Commission very closely, and several of the pieces of legislation that I have introduced in past have actually come from the Youth Commission. Thank you.
This is our final audience question, and then we're going to move to closing statements. Considering recent policies on homelessness in various U.S. cities, what is your view on criminalizing homelessness versus treating it as a socioeconomic issue? What specific actions would you propose to address homelessness in our community? I'm going to start with Matt.
So first off, homelessness is not a crime, okay? And we need to build out our compassionate infrastructure for those who are homeless, those who are in the throes of addiction or mental crisis. As I mentioned, the Way Out program, I think, is a great model for how we can lift people off the streets, out of addiction, and reintegrated into society. At the same time, homeless people are the greatest victims of crime, some of the highest instances of victims of crime in our city. And so we have to look at this other aspect of those who do not accept services, those who are using drugs openly on our street, those who are committing crimes against our businesses and against other homeless people. And for those people, especially if they don't accept services, we have to have different solutions. We should arrest people if they're committing crimes, and that is a way we can get them into the treatment program that they need to actually reintegrate them into society and reduce recidivism. We also, if people don't accept services and they will not do it, we need to ask them to leave. This is a regional issue. It shouldn't be all on San Francisco. Thank you.
Myrna.
Thank you. Homelessness is a terrible thing, and it is not one problem, and it doesn't affect only one kind of person. We have among our folks who do not have a roof over their heads, people who have fled domestic violence situation. We have almost 2,500 children in our public school systems who are homeless or housing insecure. We have families, and we do have folks who are suffering from mental health and drug addiction. So they're all different solutions to different problems. I think that what most people think about when they talk about criminalization is actually occupying the public right of way, or engaging in behaviors that affect the public health, like urinating on the streets or doing drugs on the sidewalk. That affects all of us. And for those, we do have legislation already. We have legislation against public intoxication, against urinating on the street, and those should be enforced.
I want to make an important distinction, and it's a thing I hear often, is that we're criminalizing homelessness, and that's not the case. And Grants Pass made that very clear. Conditions cannot be criminalized. However, once you ask somebody, once you make an offer of shelter, and then they refuse that shelter, then that condition becomes an activity which you can criminalize. The thing is, we have to have a bit of a carrot and a stick approach. We can't just let people do whatever they want forever without any accountability or any enforcement of the law. If a person is occupying a public space and a reasonable attempt to offer them shelter has been made and they still refuse, we have to ask them to move on. Respect goes both ways. We respect the homeless individual. We try to help them as much as they can, but they have to respect us and abide by our laws, by our standards, and not abuse them. I think a lot of our philosophy has been guided by kindness without any expectation of accountability.
That was our final question that have been submitted in advance, again, from constituents and organizations that submitted these questions to us. We're gonna go to closing statements now. And we're gonna go in reverse alphabetical order by first name. So this way. Again, I apologize for messing up the order a little earlier. So I'm going to start with Steve. You'll have 60 seconds for closing statements.
Okay. Thank you. One thing I think is quite clear if anybody follows me on social media or just generally follows me at all is I am not your typical candidate. I don't think like a politician. I don't speak like a politician. I don't act like a politician because I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm trying to bring honesty and integrity and common sense back to San Francisco politics. And most of all, I'm trying to bring back representation, which we currently don't have. I've served my community as Veteran Affairs Commissioner. I've served my community as President of Sunnyside Neighborhood Association, as President of West Twin Peaks Central Council, because I care. I care and I want to represent the city. I want to represent my district as best as I can. You may not always agree with what I have to say, but you will always know where I stand, and I will always be honest with you. I will always try my best to represent you, and I will always try to come up with a compromise solution whenever necessary that best represents the interests of the most people. I'm not guided by ideology. I'm guided by honesty, integrity, and pragmatism. Thank you.
Myrna.
My family came to San Francisco when I was 12 years old, fleeing the Salvadorian Civil War. And this wonderful, magical place gave my sisters and I refuge from violence, but also an opportunity to thrive. This place is my place. My story is a very San Francisco story where a refugee girl could grow up, become a mother, set roots on the West Side, and become the first woman to represent District 7 and the first Latina elected to any district in San Francisco. I have a very strong legislative track record now, hundreds of pieces of legislation. I am by far the most qualified candidate here in this room. If reelected, I promise that I will continue to make progress for you while being pragmatic, while being respectful, while getting along with everyone, and being a bridge builder. The West Side needs progress, and I will deliver that progress for you. Please vote to reelect me on November 5th.
And lastly, Matt.
Thank you. Look, District 7 is the greatest district in San Francisco. I love it. And that's why I stepped up to do this when it's not something that, again, is in my professional trajectory. San Francisco needs, or District 7 needs a supervisor who's going to take the issues seriously. Issues around public safety, issues around quality of life and our street conditions. Most importantly, that will listen to its constituents and hear them all, not leave people feeling alienated, powerless. And that's what a leader should be doing. And District 7 has lacked that for a long time. So my promise to you is that you are all my people, whether I disagree with you or not. I will hear you, I will listen to you, I will always be available to you, and I will do my best to work a consensus amongst our constituents and try to find real solutions that the community supports on the issues District 7 needs to see fixed. Thank you.
Thank you all. This concludes our formal program. So on behalf of the League of, we can applause now. Now we can clap. Yay! Okay. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of San Francisco and from a fellow West Sider, although the outer sunset, thank you to the candidates. Thank you to the voters. Thank you SFGovTV, the Department of Parks and Recreation for supporting this nonpartisan forum. To everyone here tonight or tuning in online or watching the recording, thank you so much for participating in our democracy by learning about your choices for the upcoming election. The League of Women Voters will host candidate forums for most local races this year, including the Community College Board, Mayor, and Sheriff. Please visit our website at lwvsf.org to learn more and to RSVP for those forums. As a reminder, please be a voter and cast your ballot by Election Day on November 5th. Your vote matters. Please be the change that you would like to see here in our home in District 7 in San Francisco. And together we can build the future of our community block by block. Remember to vote. Please encourage your friends, families, and neighbors to vote. Thank you, and have a great night.